Research in the street.
My name is Helen Moussani. I am also a founding board member of the Black Researchers Collective. And when Glennis invited me to the initial meeting in 2019 in Sherry's living room, I also was excited to be in the company of other Black women researchers that also lived on the south side of Chicago. But another thing that excited me was the opportunity to introduce research and the idea of becoming a community researcher to others who may not have even known that this pathway existed for us. I know for myself, I had always assumed that you had to be in academia or be affiliated with the university to do research, but as you've learned today, the BRC has birthed multiple community-directed research projects, and so it's really amazing to be a part of this movement. So we're getting ready today to begin recording the podcast. I just want to let everyone know that we're going to be passing out index cards for the Q&A session, so I will be floating around, passing out the index cards. You can write your question, and I'll look out and I'll collect the index cards for this Q&A towards the end of the podcast. But the Research in the Streets is the official podcast of the Black Researchers Collective, and it was just launched this year in January. The podcast is intended to provide a forum to discuss how research and data can be used by everyday people in everyday life. The first season was sponsored by the Field Foundation, so we thank you, Field Foundation, for that support. And now we have welcomed to the stage the co-host of the Research in the Streets podcast, our co-founder and executive director, Dr. Glennis Green, and our co-founder and deputy director, Sherry Runner.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Helen, and welcome everybody to our first live broadcast of Research in the Streets. It is amazing to do this. It's a little scary.
It is. Either this is going to go very well or bomb. Either way, you're going to witness it live. So congrats to you. The live experience. Here we go.
The live experience, yes.
Fill in. Also, for folks who can't see, we want to see you all. Come on up. Come from the back. Come from the sides. Fill in over here. Get up close and personal with us.
Yeah. Let's get warm. Let's get warm in here. But I don't know if many of you have heard Research in the Streets, but if there was ever an episode that really talked about research being used in the streets, this is it. We're going to talk about the application of research and art. We're going to talk about how that strengthens and connects communities and how it foments systemic change. We are so glad to have our guest today. And I am so glad to welcome to the stage.
Yes, Miss Tonika Lewis Johnson. Come on up. Woo! We're super excited to have you in the house. This is kind of weird. Maybe can we do the chairs? I think Donnell will adjust in a little bit. He'll come in and adjust the mic. Yeah, there we go. I want to see your face, girl.
Don't lean back.
I know. I'm like,
you know what?
My God.
Don't lean back.
This is the awkward phase of the live podcast. Is it weird to?
Okay.
But it is a proximity mic. Kyle was like, make sure that it's super close. Is this okay? But then, how do we do this where I can see more of her face?
I don't know, because if I go back anymore, I'm going to laugh and fall back.
No, don't do that.
We don't want you to do that.
I'm going to just...
Can we turn her chair to an angle or something? You know what? I would prefer that... How about let's switch.
You want me to go there?
Yeah, because I want people to see you, and I want to see you. I don't think that people need to see me so much, but... Here we go.
Jesus.
Ooh, almost was a goner.
See?
Okay, this is better, right?
Okay.
I'm happy to do this, then have you do that. Okay. Is this good?
Yes.
All right, we're going to do the same thing when you get on stage, Amber, just for the record. For those of you, okay, let's pretend like that went really smooth.
Yes.
Welcome to the stage, Miss Tonika Lewis Johnson.
I'm going to catch you if you fall.
Thank you, boo. Catch me if I fall. Okay. So Tonika is a photographer, social justice artist, and lifelong resident of Chicago Southside Inglewood neighborhood. Her work reveals injustices and inequities in real estate and land use practices, including historic preservation, and encourages us to reevaluate and create positive change. Her ongoing project, Folded Map, visually investigates disparities among segregated Chicago residents while bringing them together to have a conversation. Her Inequity for Sale project highlights the living history of Greater Inglewood homes sold on discriminatory land sale contracts in the 50s and 60s. And Tonika's artistic contributions have really gained international recognition, including being named Chicagoan of the Year. Woo! Yes, right? By Chicago Magazine, with previous exhibitions at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Rootwork Gallery in Pilsen, the Chicago Cultural Center, the Harold Washington Library Center, and at Loyola University's Museum of Art. She is also a 2019 Field Foundation.
Long.
It's okay. It's okay.
I need to
You're so accomplished. You gotta live in your accomplishments. You're accomplished. This is what happens when you're an accomplished human in the world. So we will carry on.
Okay.
Just a little while longer. She is a 2019 Field Foundation Leader for a New Chicago, a 2022 Residence Landmark Illinois Influencer, and recently concluded a 2023 Altier
Medici.
Thank you. My French has gotten crusty. Artist in residence in Paris, France. So she's right. She went across the pond to do her work. She also serves as a Chicago Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events Cultural Advisor Council member, a lead co-founder of the Inglewood Arts Collective and the Resident Association of Greater Inglewood, aka RAGE. She now serves as the Creative Executive Officer of the Folded Map Project nonprofit organization. Woo! Wow. I said it all. You did good. That was good.
Thank you.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So we got real power up here on the stage. Real power up here on the stage. And now we're going to actually add to that power and welcome Amber Hendley to the stage. Amber is the Director of Research for the Woodstock Institute. And as Director of Research for Woodstock Institute, Amber leads the organization's research on financial security and equity for low and moderate income households and communities of color. In May 2019, Amber co-authored The Plunder of Black Wealth in Chicago, New Findings on the Lasting Toll of Predatory Housing Contracts. You know, that's what Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote about in terms of all of the contract buying and all of that stuff. So it's very important. This publication quantified the amount legally and unjustly extracted from black communities in Chicago through predatory residential contract selling during the Second Great Migration. Plunder of Black Wealth was released at a Federal Reserve Bank Chicago symposium. Amber earned her MA in Analytical and Political Economy at Duke University and a BS in Applied and Computational Mathematics from Florida State University. Please welcome Amber.
Woo!
My girl, brilliant.
Yes.
A genius.
Amber has entered the chat, y'all, and we are super excited. And when we asked Tonika if she would join us on this live episode, she was like, yeah, you know, I got you. And she was like, but can my girl join? Can Amber come? Of course, Amber can come. Yes, because we want you all to know, and I actually didn't even know how closely you all had worked on this project, so it makes sense. Absolutely, it's like the duo has to be together for you all to talk about this work, and this is why we're super excited. It wouldn't be the same podcast with this episode without this. Most of you all know Tonika. You know who knows about Folded Map? Who knew about Folded Map before you got in the room? Yeah, look at that. Look what you're doing. Why are you so shocked? Are you shocked?
I am.
Is it heartwarming?
It is.
Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, man. Like, this is when you're doing magical work in the world, right? But also, like, you and Amber teamed up for Inequity for Sale, and I talked about, do we have any actual listeners to the podcast? Anybody listen to the podcast? Okay, great. Okay, awesome. Not as many people as got to know about Folded Map, but it's okay. We're going to get there.
But they will, trust me.
But in episode 4, Repurposing Data to Get Free, we talk about it after this bus tour that I ended up doing in 2022. And it was so amazing with you and Dilla. And this just y'all, it was so amazing talking about the work of Inequity for Sale. This is clearly a dynamic duo, and so what I wanted to know is y'all are back at it again because obviously what you were doing were working. So we won't talk a whole lot about Folded Map or Inequity for Sale because you all have hit the pavements talking about it hard for the last couple of years. We do want to talk about your new project that you were talking about, Unblocked, right? And so if you can unpack for folks the way in which you all are pushing the envelope even further, using research and data to strengthen Inglewood, that would be great.
Yes, so do I need to lean in or am I good?
No, you're good.
Okay, so Inequity for Sale is a project that was born out of the research that Amber led, part of the report, Plunder of Black Wealth in Chicago. And because she was so gracious and gifted me the data that included the addresses for the homes, part of this report, specifically the ones in Greater Inglewood, I started driving around to see the actual addresses, and that's what encouraged the idea for Inequity for Sale, which is a project that created actual life-size landmarkers for a small collection of the nearly 600 homes that were legally stolen from aspiring Black homeowners through land sale contracts. Yeah. So once we put the landmarkers up, a strange twist of fate happened, which is I met or found out that someone I knew that was their grandparents who was actually listed on the landmarkers, because the landmarkers included the date that the purchase happened, that it was just sold to the aspiring Black homeowners, and their names, and in certain cases, if we had the perpetrator's information, we included that on the landmarker. So all of that detail was on the landmarker, and someone contacted me and said that was their great-grandparents, and they actually lived with their grandfather, who is the son of the couple who was sold their home on a land sale contract. And he started to explain why he was living with his grandfather, who is the son of the couple. And he said that, you know, his great-grandparents were able to finish the land sale contract. They sold the home, and they purchased the home that his grandparents live in today, and they're like close to 70. They live on 65th and Aberdeen. But because of the devaluation of the neighborhood as a result of this discriminatory period, the housing values are low, and they can't afford to get any of these substantial repairs that they need because they can't take out a loan because the housing value is low. The insurance, it won't cover it because the housing value is low. So this couple, who could have been a story of like generational wealth, it only lasted one generation, barely, because now they can't even afford home repairs. And so that's why the person who contacted me, my friend, told me that he was living with his grandparents to help them do repairs. So once you do a project that like illuminates this horrible period, and then you receive a story like that, of course you're just like, okay, landmarks, it's just not enough, you know? So I wanted to help do something, not only for this particular family, but I met everybody else on the block who had the same kind of story. They can't afford home repairs. And this is a block of mostly older homeowners who are basically the engine of Greater Inglewood. If it weren't for the 30% homeowners, all of the schools in Inglewood would be closed. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I was coming up with ideas, and the city of Chicago was offering, at the same time that I found this story, that I found out about what was happening on 65th and Aberdeen, the city of Chicago had a Together We Heal grant-making program. Yes, we had some representatives. Yes, where they were offering up to $500,000 for artists who partner with the organization to do public art. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I was coming up with some ideas. And the thought partner group that I, test out my ideas with includes Amber and a few other people. And, I wanted to push the boundary of what public art could be and if it could be reparative. And Amber has a history in the reparations sector. And so I just basically came up with the idea that I wanted to pursue this art funding for public art using the justification that homes can be and are public art when they are repaired, restored. And I used, the homes in New Orleans as a justification. I used Amanda Williams' Colored Theory art project where she painted homes that were going to be demolished. And I asked for funding to help repair these homes, as well as do artistic activations on the vacant lots that are also on this block. And so, I ran that idea by Amber. I was like, you tell me, as a researcher and as my friend, this makes sense, right? So we applied. I partnered with Chicago Bungalow Association, and we applied. And thanks to the visionaries at the City of Chicago, the Equity Office, and the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, they saw what I was trying to do, and it was approved. So it is a public art effort. However, it's very reparative, and it is truly a next phase out of the work Amber and I started with Inequity for Sale.
And so interesting, too, that you say that, exactly what you're talking about, because it's art that's humanizing something that is ordinarily off-putting, inaccessible. People don't want to talk about it or look at it, and art makes it, something that people start to feel. How do you integrate art with research and say these are important things? How are you representing that data, that that horrible data that talks about people losing their homes, and what does that mean? How does it draw people in?
I'd love for you to say something, because I know the first moment I asked you about the data, you was like, yes. And I always was like, why did she say yes? She just said, yes, I'm going to give it to you.
Well, one of the things that I'll say is, unfortunately, a lot of times when research is done on Black community, there's a lot of red, right? There's a lot of negative, and I think people harden themselves to those numbers. Everybody wants numbers, and the data means this, and the data means that, right? But data can only go so far. That information can only go so far, and especially when it's always the same negative data, right? The disparities are always basically the same generation after generation, year after year. And so you harden yourself to that, and you're not moved by that because that's the narrative every year, right? And so so she shared that I was in the reparation space for a while, and I still am in the reparation space. But that's what we wanted to do initially. I wanted to do with that report is make an argument for reparations, for action, not again to point out this negative and how we were harmed just to point out that we're harmed and to make people angry, but to say this is a dollar amount, this is what happened, so that way we can do something about it. And we did release that report at the Federal Reserve Bank because everybody likes reports and everybody likes data and all of this, but nobody was moved to action because we didn't say anything new. We told a different story, but we didn't say anything new about what has happened to the Black community and what that impact has been. And so when Tonika asked for that data set and knowing her background, that was exciting because again, researchers can only take things so far. Publishers can only take things so far. And again, people are hardened. Like, I hate, it drives me crazy. It's the same red every year. But what has changed? What's going on? So information like this in the hands of somebody who can take it and makes you feel something, but also who has power because she's from the community. She's there, she lives there. So she has these relationships and she has this connection. It's not just data to her, it's something more. So when you put it in her hands, then she can talk to the people who are impacted, because that's actually where the action has to come from, the community itself, not us coming in doing research and then saying these are solutions for you, right? I don't have the same power that she has, and we just want to get things done. So I want her to get it done, because people respond to her. Everybody responds to her, not just those in community. Outside of community want to come in and now figure out what we can do because of the power of art. That again, the data is not enough to get things done at the foundational level. We can come from here down with the data, but again, every year we look at the same data. And what are the trends showing, right? When it comes top down. And so I think.
Yeah, I just have a follow-up.
So you see how you can feel like you can do anything when you have someone like this in your corner? I was like, I can do it, Amber.
And that's why I just had a follow-up question for you, and both of you as well, but definitely for you, Amber, because your mind, you think about research in a civic manner, as I do. You and I share that. And so it is so crucial and so important. And I'm also an artist as well, not a visual artist.
We know.
But, right.
There's Beyonce researcher up here. It's a concert.
But I love it. That's how I get free,
too.
right?
I do too.
And so, but I've always been on this journey of like combining research and art in this way. So to what extent do you all feel like research has influenced the art and strengthened the art, the practice? And for you, like to what extent has the art strengthened the practice of you doing research as a researcher? I'm just kind of curious about that, the depth of that relationship.
Oh my gosh, having not only access to Amber's brain and friendship and support, being able to get data and hard numbers from her, as well as ways to explain like the effort of trying to raise funds for home repairs through art funding. Like it sounds like esoteric, but talking with her, I was able to understand the number that I needed, the information that I needed to justify the ask for a home repair. So with Unblocked, even though it was born out of the research, now that these homes have started to get repairs, they've had actual assessments. Each home has had an assessment on the repairs they need. And because I've been in relationship with Amber and understand that the assessment themselves is valuable data to justify the ask for the amount that I'm trying to raise funds for. So it has taught me a lot about how to incorporate data and research to justify an ask, the relevance of a project, and quite frankly, just to quantify everything, how all of that information is important to build your case. And so as we are pursuing raising funds for home repairs, it made $1 million sound like that's not enough. Because now I know the cost of repairs for each home on this one block. And then I just love building with Amber, because as a result of this project collecting more data, then we're able to use it as a microcosm of the rest of the neighborhood.
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
And it sounds kind of like, you're finding things you didn't know exist. You go in, you think about these things, you get the data, you have an idea of what you want to do, and then all of a sudden you put this powerful tool in somebody's hands, and you're saying, oh, this is something more than that, and I can build something else in addition.
Yeah. How about you, Amber?
So working with Tonika has changed the way that I view the research that I do. I'm an independent researcher, so I have my own LLC, and then I direct research for Woodstock Institute. And how I steer that research, this white-led organization, and then also the work that I do, I no longer am comfortable doing research for things that we're interested in. So if it's not something that's come from someone that I know, or a community member, or an architect, or Black developers, I've been having lots of conversations about limitations for Black developers. If it's not coming from some place like that, I'm not doing that research, and that research has to go directly into, Tonika has a question, it goes into her hands. And when I do have because I am of community, I do have some questions myself. And when that comes to me, I'm not comfortable branding that without the partnership of a Tonika. Or I started a series recently and I reached out to Dilla and saying, I feel like, bro, we could do this together. Because at the end of the day, it's good to have the data. It's good to make these arguments real nice and pretty and let the city like it and whoever else needs to like it. But if it's not rooted properly in the context and given it's not led by the right people, then it won't be transformational. Because I think that's the other piece is it has to be at this point. I also did this article, how many generations were removed from slavery? At this point in time, there is like no more like sacrificing and like at
The
this
time is
point,
now.
So it has to be transformational at this point, and so it can't be done unless it's in the hands of artists or activists or organizers. Or organizers.
Or everyday
Say it again.
people.
Exactly.
Or organizers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or exactly. And to this point, everyday people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you found people who you otherwise thought, in your folded map, who would ordinarily not see each other.
Yes.
And they saw each other. And they began to talk about their similarity through data and what that meant to them. Do those relationships last? Does it stay? Is it something that people can build on from there? What do we need to do to take it to the next step, to your point, Amber? I mean, and what do we do to keep it moving?
Well, what I found out through Folded Map, one, I didn't say it was a requirement to stay best friends or to do it. I was just like, look, we're going to do this weird little project, and if y'all like each other, okay, that's out of my hands. Some of them are legit friends. Like, a couple of the Map twins are actual friends to this day. They've known each other since 2017. They support each other. Some of them, just maintain contact on social media, which is totally fine. But what I learned out of doing Folded Map is the conversations that they had when they met each other. Even though, it was awkward and, it was probably some offensive things said, I'm used to that because I've been in diverse spaces since I was a teenager, so I know that that's kind of required for learning to happen. People are going to say some crazy stuff. But they started talking about taxes, all of them.
Right.
They started talking, the natural systemic inequities started to emerge because their conversation revealed that it always comes down to that those disparities contributed to the way they thought about a neighborhood, and ultimately the way they thought about people. And so I thought that was fascinating that even if some of the Map twins weren't homeowners, the conversation always led to what was systemic disparities. And so that showed me that's what's important. Not just coming together just to be integrated, but coming together for this multi-racial understanding and movement that has to happen to make Chicago and the rest of the country more equitable. Because if we stay apart,
That's right.
we're not going to be able to talk about these things
Rationally.
Yeah, and to access the help that we all need to move these issues forward. Because this is why I love having a data person as a friend, because I'm like, the numbers show, it's not enough Black people in this country to move all of these issues alone. Because we're in Chicago, sometimes we're in a bubble and we think that the rest of the country is like this. No.
Yeah, certain parts of Chicago.
Certain parts, but just numbers-wise, we have a huge Black population here.
Black as hell.
And that's not the case.
We love it.
Man, we love it. It's not the case everywhere, and so our movements, I personally believe, not only must they be connected with other Black people, but it has to be an allyship with others that are non-Black and white people.
Speaking of, that's right. No, that's real.
The good white folk.
The good white folk in the room. I have a follow-up question, and then I do want to. Where's Helen? Send those cards over to Helen because we're getting close to Q&A, so we want to make sure that we get any thoughts that you have. But just piggybacking on that, what is your call to action for communities based on what you just shared? Both of you would love to hear that.
I'm gonna tee it up, Amber. You go ahead. 'Cause yes, 'cause you be ready. You got a list. She said, actually, I have a list.
Yeah, do it. The whole list.
So the call to action to community is to get your questions ready. What are the issues that you're seeing that you want to solve? And just put that list together and reach out to Glennis and myself now too, because I'm a Black researcher, so I'm supporting the movement. Because I firmly believe people can solve their own problems, right?
Yeah, we have everything we need.
Everything is already there. It's just let's get the plan together internally, and then we build it out, and then we give it to them, right? And that can all be done. Now, there's some data that's not as easily accessible, but we can help with that. Just get your questions together. What are your thoughts? Because we can start doing this.
Absolutely. How about you, Tonika? What's your call?
To everyone's point, we are who we have been asking for, looking for. Feel empowered enough to know that you have the solutions, and sometimes it takes having the validation and confirmation from brilliant Black researchers to make you feel empowered as a resident or as an artist. Because sometimes we speculate these things that we feel from these systemic issues, and we're like, I know this is wrong, but we don't know how to prove it other than storytelling. But to know we have access to researchers who can legitimize it, like, no, you're right. When I was talking to Amber about home ownership and how it costs so much money to stay a homeowner, and how it is actually taking money from. She's like, no, you're right. It's data. It's not. It hasn't been what it has said to be. It hasn't been generational wealth building because of all of these inequities. So I wouldn't have felt validated enough to repeat that in presentations if I did not have confirmation from a researcher to be like, no, your feeling is right. It's supported by this data. So really, do what Amber said. Just feel confident enough to know that how you view your world, your neighborhood, and possible solutions are real. And you can get information and data to support it, and customized to support it,
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes.
Woo! Give them a round of applause. Let's give them more love than that. Give them some love. Yes. Thank y'all for this. So we're gonna just room right into the Q&A, and Sherry's gonna kick us off. But this is, I know it's short, but an incredible conversation. I hope that you all are walking away with some really good nuggets about how to concretely apply research to life.
Right.
For real. And this is just so beautiful. Thank you.
And it just makes you feel so good when you're like a creative or someone unrelated to the research space, and you could just present and be like, no, the data shows. Right. That's what I get from Amber. I'm able to do that, in creative presentations. I'm able to, quote numbers and say where I got information from. Yeah. And it's just like, okay, she knows her stuff.
It's important to come to the table like that. We had a participant in one of our workshops early on, and she said, her quote was, I can come to the table with my big Black girl mouth and talk about data now. And then they have to listen to me.
That's a quote.
That's it. She was like, yeah.
Sure was. We love that. That's on the video. Don't be ashamed, girl. We got you on the video. I called her out because everybody seen the video, but they love that. They love that. That's an important thing. She mentioned that. So thank you for that. And shout out to Nubia, who's in the room.
That's right. My big Black girl mouth. Yeah.
Yes.
Our civic researcher.
That's it. So this question is for Amber. As a community organizer and growing researcher working on reparations-focused campaigns, I am wondering wondering if you can expand on how you blend the two with examples.
So organizing and reparations, blending the two?
Yes.
That is correct. So I will say that is my critique of the reparations movement, that it has not found the right way to incorporate organizing. It's a very interesting space. So I come from our co-chair right here. I was trained under Dr. Sandy Darity. He's an academic, okay? He was my mentor. But a lot of the reparations work is either in this research academic space, and then there's another somewhat of an activist move. I wouldn't even say organizing. So there's like this activist reparation space that doesn't necessarily speak to the policy research piece, but we are missing an organizing space, because that's the only way we will get this movement passed. Organizing is missing. That is a critique that I have of the work. But part of that is the connection to the research that we've been doing to understand what reparations would look like, from the cash payments, but not just that, the infrastructure change, the systemic change that has to go along with that. And part of that has to be done in a research policy way. But in terms of how we move and how we properly inform those who are impacted by this about what's going on, to move us to get the political will to do such a thing that is necessary, we need that in the organizing space. And so a lot of work that organizers work around is things that are connected to reparations, but it's indirectly connected to reparations. So we do need to figure out a way to be more thoughtful and more inclusive in the reparation space, because we do have this bougie research side that thinks that they got it and that they can do all of the things without the grassroots and the organizing. So that's my comment about that. We have not figured that out, but we need to.
I don't even want to ask another question, because that was it right there. But I will, because you wrote it in. So here's one. As a resource consultant, how can I teach the masses to engage in resources?
Teach to engage in resources?
Teach to engage. And if we need a point of clarification, will the person who wrote the question please stand?
Engage.
My office is wherever I am. So if I'm in Walmart and Biden is paying mortgages, I'm snitching. And when I'm telling them, they get excited, but then they get what they want, and then that's that. I need for you to activate and do what I do. I need for you to engage in collecting and sharing resources, and I'm having a problem with that 10 years strong. So is there a tactic?
That I have?
Yes, that I can get them to actually engage. I don't want to say everybody's a taker. It's nice to be nice.
Yeah.
And I call myself a professional snitch. But I need others to be a professional snitch with me. And it's so difficult. They get it. They get excited about the resources. I read everything. And then people send me stuff. They send me stuff so I know. So then I share. But I'm not finding many people who are willing to do it.
So I tend to use, you said you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think this question can be for either one of you all, because I know, Tonika, you as well have done a phenomenal job of activating other people around things that are important to them as an artist.
Yeah, I would say, it comes down to, organizing, but at the root of organizing, which is also the root of my project Folded Map, it's the root of my life in general, all of ours, is relationships. Because that's really at the core of what organizing and sharing information is. It's relationships. So encouraging other people to know that they can also be an advocate, that they can also share, and helping them position themselves so that they can share. I have a few different examples. One I can use is with the Inglewood Arts Collective. We're a collective of established self-employed artists, and we often help other younger creatives. And, not being a gatekeeper isn't just not keeping information, but it's also helping others know how they can communicate to their social network and helping them, giving them the information so that they can do it. So some of the younger creatives, when we tell the ones who are asking us about information, how do I apply for an individual artist grant? What do I need to have? Like, okay, we tell them what they need to have, but then we also give them information, social media assets, this is just an example, of how they can share it with their network, you know? So just helping people know the ways in which that they can share. And then just trusting it, you know, sometimes that's enough, you know, because how are you gonna measure the impact of if somebody shared? You know, you don't really know until, you know, it starts to come back to you. And then another, you know, point of engagement is to, if you know you've shared, then that's also kind of have to be enough sometimes.
It's going to have to be enough.
You know, remove yourself from the expectation that whoever you tell should, you know, like, it'll come back to you. Like, I can just imagine Amber shared that information, the data set with me. She didn't know what I was gonna do. And it was a while away before I came back and was like, I have what I wanna do. Right. She just gave me the data set. And, you know, it was a whole bunch of stuff I did until I came back to her. So, you know, she gave the information without having the expectation that, okay, I need you to share it. So just release yourself from the expectation, I would say is a primary thing, because life is long and I haven't lived a whole lot of it, but you never know, because young creatives or people that I've shared information with, they come back like 5 years later and tell me how they've used that information, what they've done. So, yeah, I would just say release yourself from the expectation.
And that's a beautiful thought, because as we come to the end of this period of time together on our first live podcast in the streets.
This was lit.
Right? That's good.
It was not unlit.
It was not unlit.
It was lit.
It was sufficiently lit.
It's interesting because that spark, you know, when you spark somebody, they may not spark like you want them to spark, but they're going to spark the way they need to spark, and you just don't know anything about it. So it's important, and we are so thankful.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you
for
both.
both of you, Amber and Tonika, for coming today to be with us and to share your wisdom in all kinds of ways. You know, is it art or is it science? That's always the question. And so
It's all of it.
It's all of it together.
Art is
Everything,
science,
everything
science
I
is
want.
art. All of it, all of it.
All of it.
Yes.
All of the above. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
we
you
appreciate you all. Give them a round of applause. And that concludes our episode of Research in the Streets. Research in the Streets. Give them some more love, y'all.
Thank you all.
Research in the Streets.